Here is one more example of a synchronous question, but a little bit more advanced. As you can see here, we have a question: execute the given list of asynchronous functions in parallel and return the results as an array to the callback. As you can see here, we already have 3 functions, and this is given with the task. So each function have here inside a callback, which returns 1, 2, and 3. Most important part here, that first function is 3 seconds, then 2 seconds, then 1 second. And then we must write a function async parallel, where inside we're throwing an array of asynchronous functions, which means every single function has a callback. And as a second parameter, we have here own callback for async parallel. Here we're getting our result, and we're console logging it here, and we must get, in this case, 1, 2, 3, because it must print results of each asynchronous function in order, which actually means we're executing 3 functions in parallel, and we're waiting for all of them to complete. And after this, we have the correct order of the results, which actually means we're getting results of every single function. And actually, we're using parallel fetching, for example, quite a lot every day, because we want, for example, to fetch 3 different requests simultaneously and then get all data in one place and merge it somehow. This is why let's build this function now, but it's not easy and we really need to think what we are doing here. So we want to implement a async parallel function, and actually here we are getting first of all an array of our asynchronous functions. So we can write here async funcs, and the second parameter is our callback. And importantly, this is a callback for async parallel, not for the specific async func function. And first of all, here I want to create an array where we will put our results. So here I can write result array, and here we want to write new array and inside async functions.length. In this case, we are preparing the empty array with 3 elements, and obviously it is 3 only for our case, and it can be any length of our asynchronous functions. After this, I want to create a results counter, and by default it will be 0 until the length of our array. Why do we need that? Because actually every single asynchronous function can be ended in random time, and we must wait for all this function to complete. This means that we must count how many functions are already completed until we are reaching length. This is why here let's create our result counter. And by default it will be 0, and now we want to loop through our asynchronous functions. So here async funcs dot for each, and I'm really using for loop here, and we're getting access for every single asynchronous function, and we also need here an index, because we need to store the results also in the same correct order. Now, inside for each, we must call our asynchronous function. Most importantly, we don't know at all what this function is doing, but we know that this function gets a callback. This is why here we can write our callback. So we're calling async function without any arguments, and inside we're providing our callback. If this callback is triggered, this means that we are ready with our asynchronous function. And now we want to write the result inside our array. This is why here actually we are getting in our callback value. And as you can see here, inside every single callback we are getting a value, and this is exactly the value that we are getting inside our callback here. Now we want to store this value inside our result array. So here we can write result array, and here will be our index equals value. And just to remind you, we have our index here. This is why we know that we stored it correctly. For example, this is the third function, and it will be triggered first, then we will write it on the index 2. After this, we must increase our results counter to know that one of the functions is done. And last but not least, we want to check here if this function was the last one. So here we can check if our result counter bigger or equal async funcs. Then we want to call our callback for async parallel. So here we can simply write callback, and inside we are providing our result array. So once again, what we are doing here. First of all, we are preparing an empty array and our counter. We are looping through our asynchronous functions, and we are calling every single function. And here we are providing in every function a callback, and when we are getting success, we first of all store our result inside result index, and then we increase our counter. In this case, we know that this logic will return us callback for async parallel when we are ready and when all our functions are completed. So here we are calling our callback with result array. Now actually we must move this function before our call async parallel, because we must write it with const. And let's check if it's working. I'm reloading the page, and we're getting an error assignment to constant variable. Let's check this out. Yes, as you can see, result counter can't be increased because it is const. So here we can write let and then it should work. Let's check this out. I'm reloading the page, we don't have any errors. Now 3 seconds passed and we're getting our array with 1, 2, 3, which actually means here our async parallel waits for every single asynchronous function to be completed, and then we generate as a callback our result here, and now we can use here our array in the correct order. And this is completely fine if you can't build this function fast. Most importantly, if you are doing it in interview, you must always say out loud what you are doing and how you are thinking, because normally on interview it's not that important if you solve this task fully or not. You must show your way of thinking and how you want to solve this specific task.